These days, there are tons of horror games for Android, but most of them are online and pretty much the same, all focused on cheap jump scares. Finding something truly different in this genre, one that got super popular, is actually pretty hard. But luckily, you ended up here in this very specific video. I'm going to show you 15 offline horror games from the Play Store that you probably didn't even know existed. So hit that like button and let's get started. Let's start with a game that's completely different from the usual mobile horror titles, a strange little gem called YUPPIE SAIKO. This one is actually a PC game ported to mobile, and it's pretty unknown on the Play Store. YUPPIE SAIKO is one of those games that looks simple at first, but quickly pulls you into an eccentric, unsettling world full of bizarre secrets. The story follows your character, a shy and inexperienced young man who receives a mysterious letter offering him a job at a huge corporation. Brian's beginner assignment is anything but normal. He must hunt down and eliminate a witch that has been haunting the company for decades. No training, no real weapons, no psychological preparation whatsoever. The gameplay works like an exploration-based adventure. You'll roam through different floors of the building, talk to employees, each one stranger than the last, and slowly uncover the truth behind the curse and how to defeat the witch. Here's a horror game that's also a full-on shooter, basically a straight third-person action experience, and this one is actually a bit well known on Android. Let's talk about Wall of Insanity. Wall of Insanity is a third-person action horror game that throws you into a heavy, decaying atmosphere filled with mystery and tension. The story begins when a military squad is sent to investigate the disappearance of a special operations team that vanished during a mission. Once you arrive, things get weird fast. You have to face disturbing events connected to a sinister religious cult. The gameplay focuses on careful exploration, tight ammo management, and direct combat against creatures that look like they crawled straight out of nightmares. Compared to most games on this list, this one leans a little less on pure horror. But when the sound cues hit and the jump scares show up, they definitely catch you off guard. And here's something worth mentioning. Wall of Insanity 2 recently released, continuing the story from the first game. On this next one is pretty generic and predictable, but it's completely offline and has a mechanic that really deserves some attention. Let's talk about The Light. The story takes place in a post-collapse world where humanity seems to have vanished. You explore empty buildings, a deserted school, silent streets, and environments that feel frozen in time. There's no spoon-fed narrative. You piece everything together on your own by observing and interpreting every clue you find. The gameplay is simple and walk around, inspect objects, explore the spaces, and take in the atmosphere. But that simplicity is part of its charm. The game is drenched in melancholy, yet still manages to deliver tense, unsettling moments. One especially interesting aspect is how the game uses light, not just as a visual effect, but as part of the storytelling itself. It becomes one of the core elements that guide the experience and help deliver a surprisingly strong narrative. Most people have no idea this game even exists on the Play Store, and even fewer know it's actually a really atmospheric horror experience. Let's talk about SILT. The story is presented in a very minimalistic way, almost without dialogue, leaving most of the interpretation to the player. As you explore massive ruins, abandoned machinery, and colossal underwater creatures, you start to sense an ancient force beneath the ocean, something that shapes and corrupts everything around it. The core mechanic is simple but incredibly creative. You can possess sea creatures. Each underwater animal has its own unique ability, and by taking control of them, you can open pathways, activate mechanisms, or protect yourself from hostile creatures. SILT isn't a game built around jump scares or the kind of fear where a killer clown jumps out of the dark. Instead, the entire game is drawn like a black and white illustration. Every environment looks like a disturbing piece of artwork, haunting, surreal, and beautifully unsettling. Unlike the others, this one sits right in the middle of a very generic looking game, but with surprisingly unique gameplay and story elements. Let's talk about SAIKO no SUTOKA. You play as a student who wakes up trapped inside a school. Your objective sounds simple: find the exit key and escape alive. But there's a problem. SAIKO, your yandere girlfriend, is hunting you down through the hallways, desperate to stay with you forever. She's unpredictable, surprisingly smart, and constantly shifts between cute behavior and pure sadism, toying with you before going in for the attack. The gameplay revolves around exploring rooms, searching for codes, unlocking doors, and trying not to make noise. You don't have weapons. All you can do is run, hide, and outsmart her. The game has multiple endings, and its story can even get a little funny at times. But there are also also darker versions of the character that push things into a much creepier tone. Overall, it's a chaotic and surprisingly fun horror experience. This might be the most famous game on our list, but because the mobile version is offline, a lot of people don't even know it exists. Let's talk about Poppy Playtime. You play as a former employee of Playtime Co., returning to the abandoned toy factory years after all the workers mysteriously disappeared, and the moment you step inside it becomes pretty clear that it might be your turn to vanish because the toys have started coming to life. The core mechanic is the grab pack, a backpack with 2 extendable mechanical hands. You'll use it for everything: solving puzzles, activating switches, reaching distant objects, and opening new paths. The story unfolds slowly through VHS tapes, documents, and strange events scattered around the factory. Piece by piece, you discover that the company was conducting disturbing experiments behind the scenes. It's one of those massively popular horror games that exploded, especially among kids, but even today it remains one of the most iconic and genuinely interesting entries in the genre. I absolutely love this game. The characters, the dialogue, the atmosphere, everything about it is just perfect. Let's talk about Moth Lake. The story begins on the eve of a rare eclipse that only happens every many years. That event awakens something ancient, something buried deep beneath the town. As the characters start digging into what's really happening, they uncover terrible secrets and rituals that are on the verge of breaking loose. The gameplay works like a modern point-and-click adventure. You explore environments, collect items, solve simple puzzles, and talk to different characters. The game also offers multiple routes, giving you different paths and outcomes depending on your choices. The cast is full of teenage characters who are constantly arguing, complaining, and getting on each other's nerves, and of course there's always a monster lurking, ready to hunt them down. Moth Lake, a horror story, is perfect for players who enjoy story-driven horror, heavy atmosphere, and meaningful choices that truly shape the fate of every character. Misguided Never Back Home is a first-person horror game focused on exploration, puzzles, and psychological tension, and today we're talking about this older, often forgotten title.
SILT, aku tunggu di luar saja ya. Sepertinya
the story follows Sylvia, a student who gets lost on her way home and ends up trapped in a strange place where nothing follows the normal rules of reality. Everything feels off, distorted, and unsettling. The gameplay centers on exploring tight, closed-off areas, abandoned houses, narrow corridors, dark rooms, and locations that shift as you progress. There are no weapons, no direct combat. Instead, the game relies heavily on puzzles, many of them surprisingly challenging, along with messages and disturbing events that hint you're being stalked by an entity tied to Sylvia's traumatic past. This is one of those old-school horror games, the kind that mixes a solid story with classic horror elements, blending psychological tension with those familiar traditional scares. I really enjoy these 2D horror games with a dark, heavy atmosphere, and that's exactly what this one delivers. Let's talk about Mental Haze. The story revolves around a traumatic event the protagonist is trying to repress. You don't get clear answers right away. Everything is revealed in fragments. What makes it interesting is how the game pulls you directly into the character's daily life, so you can notice what's wrong with him, from taking a shower before bed to going to work like nothing happened. The gameplay is fully focused on exploration, observation, and environmental puzzles. There's no combat at all, which makes you feel even more vulnerable. You'll inspect rooms, personal belongings, newspaper clippings, and messages left by the character himself. The game uses classic horror mechanics but manages to stay engaging with a strong atmospheric tension that keeps you hooked from start to finish. Made of SKER is a first-person horror game that mixes stealth, suspense, and exploration inside an isolated hotel known as the SKER Hotel, and that's what we're diving into now. This game demands absolute silence that the enemies can't see, but they hear everything. Every step, every breath, every object you accidentally knock over can reveal your location. You can't fight them. All you can do is run and survive. You play as Thomas Evans, who travels to the hotel after receiving a desperate letter from his beloved Elizabeth Williams asking for help. But once he arrives, he discovers the hotel is overrun by twisted, deformed figures. Moments ago, you thought you would be the hero. Now you're just as trapped and helpless as she is, searching for any way to escape. Your main goal is to rescue Elizabeth and stop her family from completing a ritual that could end everything. Literally. This might be the game with the silliest looking graphics, but it also carries the darkest and most tragic story in this entire video. Let's talk about Fran. You play as Fran, a 10-year-old girl who witnessed the brutal death of her parents. Traumatized, she's sent to a psychiatric hospital with no one left besides her beloved cat, Mr. Midnight. All she wants is to escape and find him again. The game begins with her planning her getaway and slowly realizing that everyone around her is hiding strange, unsettling secrets. From the very first moment, the game dives into a surreal mystery. You never really know who's real, who you can trust, or what's actually happening. Even the medication she's forced to take reveals a twisted version of the world, a dark, grotesque layer filled with monsters, hidden messages, blood, and symbolic figures. It's genuinely eerie, disturbing, and emotionally heavy, but also one of the best story-driven horror games out there. I always recommend it if you want a powerful and haunting narrative. This game features what might be one of the top 3 scariest horror enemies that can chase you mannequins. Let's talk about forgotten memories. Play as Rose Hawkins, an investigator searching for a missing girl named Eden. During the search, Rose ends up trapped inside a destroyed, twisted hospital that strangely connects to memories from her childhood. The gameplay is straightforward. You move through dark, claustrophobic areas, manage limited supplies, and of course, fight off a whole lot of mannequins trying to take you down. The story unfolds gradually through documents, dialogue, and encounters with unsettling figures that inhabit this alternate dimension. One of the strongest points of the game is its extremely tense atmosphere. There are countless mannequins scattered everywhere, but you never know which one is going to start moving. That constant uncertainty keeps you on edge the entire time. Can you believe this relaxing little game is actually a horror game? In theory, all you're supposed to do is fish, but things get much stranger than that. Let's talk about Dredge. The gameplay is simple and straightforward. You sail across the map, catch different species of fish, manage the space inside your boat, and sell your haul to earn money and upgrade your vessel. But the deeper you go, the more you realize the ocean is hiding something dark. During the day, everything feels normal, just another calm fishing trip, but at night the game changes completely. Deformed creatures rise from the depths, the sea becomes hostile, and the fog itself starts playing tricks on your eyes. And it doesn't stop there. With time, you discover that the place you live in is connected to something far more sinister, and you're already in deeper than you ever imagined, and literally. I really love this game. Its story actually managed to make me feel guilty, just like the main character. Let's talk about Distrained. You play as Price, a young and ambitious man working for a powerful debt collection company. To earn a promotion, he must evict vulnerable people from their homes, the elderly, the sick, people with nowhere else to go. With every eviction he completes, the guilt grows heavier. And that's when the game starts sinking into deep psychological horror. The gameplay is simple and straightforward. You walk through different areas, interact with objects, solve small puzzles, and progress as the story unfolds. But the real horror isn't in monsters, it's in Price's conscience. He's slowly crushed by the weight of his actions, and as the guilt builds, you start to feel the same sadness and regret he does. It hits harder than you expect. Distraint is short, direct, and incredibly effective. Let's finish this list with the newest game here, released less than a month ago. We're talking about Bendy in the Dark Survival. The game works like a semi-randomly generated maze. Every run changes the layout, item locations, room connections, and even the escape routes, making it feel almost like a roguelike. The story takes place in the Bendy and the Ink Machine universe, showing the studio after it's been completely overtaken by living ink. You play as a survivor trying to escape that twisted reality while finding recordings that might help you or terrify you even more. Your job is to collect resources, manage your stamina, search for hiding spots, and listen carefully to footsteps and strange noises echoing through the halls. There's no combat at all. If Bendy finds you, your only options are to run or hide inside one of the scattered lockers. And that's it for today's list. If you discovered at least one new horror game to try, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, Nafs, and I'll see you in the next one.